Today in this video we're comparing MaxiGrow to MaxiBloom as we've done in previous videos of this series. So if you're just stumbling upon this video, I just want to remind you this is part of a larger experiment. So those other videos will be in the links in the description below through a playlist or at the end of this video as well. So in those previous videos we grew produce. In this video we're only going to be growing flowers, and we're going to be looking at if MaxiBloom will grow more flowers if we only use MaxiBloom through the entire grow, and then we're going to be comparing it to a set of plants growing in only MaxiGrow. And then if we do not get the results that we like, we're going to go ahead and do another video for a follow-up where we're going to do MaxiGrow in both of them, and then we're going to switch to the MaxiBloom on one side when they start to flower to see if we can increase the flower production that way. So I actually started this video a few months ago, or I tried starting it, and I had some germination issues, and these seeds are, as I've done with soybeans in the past, I had a lot of trouble getting seeds to germinate that are this large. You can see them in here. I actually put 8 seeds in here. You can see them right there. So they're pretty big, and the problem is that when I normally do videos, when I normally start experiments anyways, I put a lot of seeds in one little net pot, and I will wait till all of them germinate, or at least most of them, and then I will remove the ones that were not growing the same as the other ones. So in order to do an experiment like this, I need to have a very good data set to start with. I can't have some germinate and some not germinate and have to start over, and some of them have a head start. And because these seeds are larger, they're in less quantity. So for those of you who have been following along with my channel, I apologize for not getting this video out sooner. Hoping this time that it works. I got 8 seeds in each this time instead of just 2 per net pot. And we're going to actually take these out of the soil once they sprout, rinse them off, and then put them in hydroponics because they don't seem to like trying to germinate on rock wool, or at least on top of rock wool. So we're going to go ahead and get this experiment started, and I'll come back once they've sprouted. All right, so out of the 16 seeds that I planted, there were 6 that germinated, and this is a very low germination rate. The same thing I saw last time I tried to start this experiment months ago with less seeds, and of course that's why it didn't work out. But in any case, I have enough here, and they all germinated at the same time. These 4 did. These 2 sprouted later. I'm not going to use those. So what I'm going to do is take the roots, I'm going to peel the dirt away from them very gently, rinse them off, just put them in the hydroponic setup. And because these over here on this side, I believe there was a little bit less water on this side. I think it just dried faster than this, and therefore these 2 are a little bit smaller than these 2, but they're basically the same. So these 2 are identical and these 2 are identical. So I'm going to kind of switch them up a little bit. So I'm going to take these 2 and put them in one side of the experiment in the MaxiGrow, and then these 2 in the MaxiBloom. So they're both, so they're all about even. All right, I got my experiment all set and ready to go here. I got the MaxiGrow buckets on the left, MaxiBloom buckets on the right, and I've taken my Apogee MQ500 par meter and made sure the par levels were exact at each one of these seedling tops, and that's why you can see that these buckets are not exactly evenly spaced. That's because I had to move and manipulate them just ever so slightly to make sure that it was all even. Even with this MarsHydro strip light here, which has a very nice even coverage, I still wanted to make it pretty exact for this experiment just to be fair. And it's sitting right around a little over 400 micromoles at each one of these seedling plant tops. So we're gonna let this experiment go for a little while here, maybe a week or 2, and I'll come back and we'll see what happens. All right, it's been 2 weeks since the last segment of this video, and this is the progress we're looking at here. This plant over here in the MaxiBloom in the front right here, this is a little bit bigger than the rest, and I believe is a slightly different variety. The package that these seeds come in is a mixed variety. It's all basically the same plant, but there's some slight variations. As you can see here, there's with these 3 plants, the one in the back there, which is also in the MaxiBloom, and then these 2 over here, they have that yellow coloration on those leaves. That's a normal feature of that plant. This one over here doesn't have that at all, so it's a slightly different variety. But anyways, you can see here they're all pretty much, at least these 3 here, they're all pretty much the same exact size, and they look the same. So right now, it's looking like this experiment is kind of going the way that I would prefer it, and that is, will the MaxiBloom produce more flowers with the same size plants? So the ones over here obviously have double the amount of nitrogen, and this is slightly different than growing plants that produce well, produce, like peppers, to where those, you know, need more nitrogen, to where these type of plants don't necessarily need that. So normally if you have a bigger plant, it's obviously, in most cases, going to produce more, whether it be flowers or produce. And that's kind of the case with this one. So we might have to kind of reject this one from the experiment. We'll still look at it, but I think mainly we're going to be looking at the one back there and then just these two over here. So we'll come back, and maybe when these start flowering, which shouldn't be too long from now, probably another 2 weeks. All right, it has been 2 more weeks, and I've been letting these go for a while and just kind of seeing how they absorb the nutrient solution and just the nutrients in general, basically just by seeing how much, you know, nutrient solution was left by looking inside. They were moving around, see how heavy they were, and they all seem to be absorbing at about the same rate, the fluid anyways. And you can see here that there are now differences. Now I've reorientated these because these are falling over. These aren't plants that grow straight up in a solid stem. These are the kind of plants that will normally be like on the ground. You put these in planters and they'll just kind of hang over, almost like vining. And so I reorientated these so these all face sort of in the same direction, and these two over here just like that. So they all kind of are getting the same amount of light, so that, you know, because some of these before were starting to face in different directions. So, you know, if they're facing towards the middle, they're going to get more light, to where these are facing this way, they're going to get less light. So I reoriented for that reason, and also because if they're growing towards the center, they might start to all kind of like grow together and you know, intermix, which I don't want, because it'll be more difficult to look at the flowering later on. So anyways, what I've actually observed here is that these plants have all started to kind of average out and normalize. So the 2 plants here on the left-hand side growing with the MaxiGrow, which has twice the amount of nitrogen as the MaxiBloom, are slightly bigger than the ones over, and the 2 plants over here on the MaxiBloom side. And you can see that they're more green, and obviously because there is more nitrogen, twice the amount. That's partially because I let them go for a while to just use all of what was in the container before I actually did a nutrient change out. And you can clearly see that there's a difference in that respect. And these plants over here aren't really all that much smaller than the ones over here. It's mostly just that these have a nitrogen deficiency now. But I've just changed out the nutrient solution in all of these containers. And obviously the ones over here on the left got the MaxiGrow. I used a 1 gallon jug, and I mixed all of the solution up there at 5 grams per gallon of this stuff, and then I divided that gallon into both of these so they're getting the exact same solution, and I did the same thing here on the right with the MaxiBloom. And this is the result now so far after this amount of time. I was kind of expecting to see flowers already, but we're a little bit getting past the 30-day mark, I think, here, depending on when you count the plants being in their, you know, full growing stage, not counting the seedling stage. So we're gonna have to let this go a little bit longer. I believe this was supposed to be like a 35 or 40-day plant, so we might start to see flowers here pretty soon. But I wanted to make this update to kind of show what was going on and see how I have things arranged. I did move the light up here a little bit higher since these plants grew, so that you get some more even light coverage. And these are all receiving about 300 micromoles of light at the plant tops. Obviously there's a little bit of variation here and there, but that doesn't really matter all that much. So we're gonna come back, unless something actually changes where I need to come back and do a video update here, we'll come back when they're flowering. All right, so here's a little timeline interjection here. There's nothing to report on the plants, but I just learned that these are actually edible. The stems, the leaves, and the flowers. We don't have any flowers yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and actually taste a leaf and a stem, I guess. I'll do it from each plant, or at least from one of the plants on this side and one on this side. And I also will remove a leaf and a stem from the other plants, so, you know, that everything is controlled and even. But I'm told that they're like a peppery, mustardy taste. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull off one of these leaves and taste it here. Well, I guess there is one thing to note here I didn't really realize before, is that it seems like the leaves over here on these plants on this side, that's the MaxiGrow, are a little bit bigger than the leaves on the plants over here on the MaxiBloom side. Other than that, there's nothing else to really talk about here in this little segment. I'm gonna go ahead and take this off and try it out. Oh yeah, it's, wow, I wasn't expecting that. It's very, wow, it's like eating a radish. The leaf, you can see I took a bite there. The leaf is like a radish. Obviously there's not a lot of sustenance to it, but the flavor of it, it's got that kick to it. Oh yeah. It tastes exactly like a radish and is very peppery. Well, yeah, I guess I would say it's peppery. It has a punch to it. I wouldn't call it spicy. It's not one of those things that's like hot and lasting, but it has that initial spice to it. Here's the stem. I'm gonna try this. Yeah, it's not a lot to the stem. It's pretty much the same flavor though. I'll just eat the whole thing here. Yep, exactly like eating a radish. That's interesting. I'll pull one off of here. I'm gonna try to get a more green one though, because I want to make sure I kind of keep it even as far as the chlorophyll contents. Anyways, I know if I eat a yellow one, it's not. The flavor is probably gonna be different. I'm just gonna eat this whole thing and see if it's the same. Yeah, so on this plant over here, it's kind of hard to tell because my mouth is already kind of full of this leaf that I ate on from this side. The flavor is the same. It didn't seem like it has as much of that kick to it with like the spice that you get from like eating a raw radish. But other than that, it was pretty much the same. I'll probably have to come back at another time and maybe taste another leaf after these have grown a little bit and just see, try to compare it that way. But when I come back also, I'm also going to try the flowers as well, because that'll be hopefully the next segment in this video here. All right, it's been about a week and a half since the last segment of this video, and we are starting to get flowers on the back plant there. They're really cool looking flowers actually. I'm going to show that in a second. But the plants over here on the right-hand side, the MaxiBloom plants, that plant back there has flowers and buds. The plant up on the front here doesn't really have a lot that I couldn't even really find many buds at all for some reason. I figured both those plants would be about the same. The plants on the left-hand side, the MaxiGrow plants, there is no flowers or buds even growing on these whatsoever. And that's kind of what you would expect when you're growing a plant that only grows flowers to create seeds to reproduce itself. When you're growing a plant that grows produce, like fruits or vegetables, you want nitrogen. But a plant like this where it just grows flowers, the whole point of the MaxiBloom is so that you stop giving it the MaxiGrow, stop giving it that amount of nitrogen, taper back, and switch to the MaxiBloom, so it puts its energy into growing flowers, instead of in this case where this is putting all of its energy, the nitrogen is being used for this, and it's putting all its energy into growing all the foliage instead, and nothing in flowers. And that's all good and well if you were going for that. So if you wanted to just eat the leaves, if you're using this for food, salads or whatnot, if you just want to eat the leaves, that's perfectly fine. But if you're looking to grow the flowers, that's what the MaxiBloom would do. You taper back on the MaxiGrow, switch to the MaxiBloom, so that more energy starts going into flowers. You can even see that the leaves here are, yellowish. They're not anywhere near these. These are nice, healthy, and green looking, or what you would call healthy. But in this case, this is what the plant is supposed to do. And if we look here in the back, you can see the flowers, pretty cool looking. There's a couple of them actually. There's some down in here, one in the back. I can barely see my screen here. And then there's this nice one, and there's another one starting over here. And you can see it has like this tail on it. I'm assuming that's maybe almost like for a hummingbird. It can stick its beak down in there, and maybe that's where nectar sits. So you can see it here in this one as well. It's pretty cool. But what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to take this opportunity to taste the flower. I'm just going to pick the flower there. I really wish I didn't have to do this because there's not a whole lot growing in there, but there's more buds there. There's a bud there, right there. There's a bud right over there. There's a couple more. So there'll be more flowers as we go along. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick this and eat this because apparently every bit of the plant is edible. I'm not really sure about the roots. I'm not going to try it though, I'm going to tell you that. But yeah, there's the flower up close. It's pretty neat looking. I've never really seen a flower like that. But this is apparently an Alaskan plant. So I'm pretty sure I have not seen any plants like this growing around, not natively anyways. Maybe I saw them in a greenhouse before, but not paid much attention to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and taste this. I'm assuming that the whole thing is edible. It didn't say anything about what part of the flower to eat, so we'll see if it tastes just like the leaves. Oh man, yeah. It has an odor to it. Like a ooh. Oh. Yep. It's the initial taste is I get the aroma of a flower first, which is really weird. I've never eaten a flower like that anyways. And I can't put myself in front of the camera because apparently YouTube doesn't like to watch people eat food on camera or it'll demonetize you. So you just have to take my word for it here that I put it in my mouth and tasted it. It tastes pretty much just like the leaves with a little bit different of a texture. And it has the exact same radish taste, mustardy radish taste, mostly radish I would say. It doesn't taste bad at all. It's just really weird. I would definitely feel more comfortable just eating the leaves, but yeah, it's not something that I would just continue to eat. I would say I'd probably put these leaves maybe on a salad or something like that, but I don't think I'd be using the flowers for much. I hope I didn't just poison myself. All right, it's been about a week since the last segment, and the plants here on the left, the MaxiGrow, still no buds, no signs of flowering yet. This one here up front has been consuming a lot of water. I've been having to top this off several times to where I haven't had to do that to any of the other containers here. It seems like it's about the same size plant as the one in the back there, but this one just keeps sucking up the water. I'm not really sure why that is. The airflow and everything coming in there everything's all even. So maybe this one's just wanting to grow more and grow faster. I'm not really sure. But anyways, the one over here in the back, look at all these new flowers. So there's a lot of flowers there. Pretty nice color. The one up front here, this one here is starting to bud. There's not a whole lot I can point out because they're pretty small, but you can see there's one right there. But that's what they look like on this plant here. There's more of those. So that one is just starting late, to where the ones over here on the left are not doing that at all. And they might, but it all depends. I gotta do a nutrient change out here, and then we'll come back and see what happens in a little while. All right, it's been about another week, and I have a little confession here. I have not been doing nutrient change out on the plants here on the left-hand side, the MaxiGrow plants. And disregard the one in the front here, but the one in the back, you can see that it is still very green and mostly healthy looking for not giving it any kind of plant food at all. It's just been getting water. The one in the front here has still been sucking up a lot of water, and I've been having to top that up even more. So this one here is getting even less amount of plant food or fertilizer. And what I've been trying to do here is to see if I can get these to start to flower or to bud. And they kind of have. So here you can see like there's a little tiny one there, and there's one over there. But other than that, there's really hardly anything on there. And it's the same story with the plant back there. There's a couple small little buds on there starting. But that's because I have been giving them no plant food whatsoever to try to see what happens basically. Because at this point, the experiment is kind of over anyways. I haven't really kind of clarified that yet. The plant over here in the MaxiBloom, there is plenty of little buds on here. You can see one right there. They're all over here. Is a smaller plant, obviously. And the one in the back there just keeps on flowering. These are very vibrant flowers, and the video doesn't really do it any justice. In person, it looks pretty neat. As I said, I'm going to be ending the experiment here, but I'm going to explain something really quick. This is pretty much exactly what I've seen in all the other experiments I've done where I've had the two-part nutrient, where you have one is for vegetative stage and one's for flowering. So obviously the ones that are meant to grow in the vegetative stage, or in this case the MaxiGrow, has more nitrogen, and the plants grow larger. You can clearly see that these plants are larger, and they're kind of growing up above the lights, where these plants are smaller, we're getting less nitrogen. It's just the flowering nutrient. Now, naturally, if I was to theoretically, I mean, this is actually how it's supposed to work, but these are different plants, so I can't really confirm that. Naturally, you know, with a larger plant, you're going to have more flowers. So that's why in part 2, what I'm going to do is the same thing I've done in the past with my like pepper plants and things like that, is I'm going to do the same thing where I grow both plants in the MaxiGrow until they grow larger like these, and then I'm going to switch them over to the MaxiBloom on one side. So like the 2 plants here would be switched over after a certain point. And then we'll see which plants actually produce more flowers. Now it's pretty much going to end up like this here. It's going to end up where the plants here on the MaxiGrow side are always probably going to be exactly the same. They're going to grow a lot of foliage, not produce any flowers whatsoever, because that particular nutrient has a lot more nitrogen in it, and that prohibits the growth of the flowers and puts all the energy into the foliage. So we'll probably see the same thing here, and they'll just be much larger, bushier plants. While the plants on the right will probably be still large, but they're going to be producing the flowers as we taper back the nitrogen by giving it the MaxiBloom. That's the prediction, but that's actually what's supposed to happen. That's what it's designed for. But talking about it is one thing and doing it is another. So in part 2 of this, I just want to reiterate that this is not a final experiment by itself. Part 2 is the other part of this experiment. So if you want to follow along, we're going to go ahead and go on to do that, and then that one will be out at some point in the future. So if you're interested in seeing that and you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, and like this video if you appreciate this stuff, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.